it going? This is another episode of My Uncomfortable Podcast. Today, I have an awesome guest right here, Charly O. She is a wonderful, wonderful painter. You can see some of her paintings in the background. We were just talking about it. I mean, man, it's good. She's really good, really talented. A lot of thought it was put into the paintings, and also a lot of thought that can just, you sit there and you think, wow. You could sit there and look at it for hours. It's not one of those paintings you look at and, oh, it's cool. That's a nice dog. No, and those are awesome. Those are awesome. So I think it's best for me to allow you to just to give a quick bio of who is Charly O.
Hi, I'm Charly O. I am a disabled veteran. I did 6 years in the military, got out sick, have continued my education, and recently graduated cum laude from Cornish College of the Arts. Have done a couple shows in Seattle, and hopefully getting my master's degree in Texas. So, a little bit.
Awesome. Your master's degree in Texas, which college are you thinking about?
I'm applying at Texas A&M Corpus Christi, Austin, UT, and Women's College in San Antonio.
Oh, so, awesome!
I graduate.
I'm a big Texas A&M fan, so hopefully you go at that end. I mean, shoot, we met. I know Charly from years ago, and when we lived in Port Aransas. And so I know that you would want to go back. You're trying to go to Texas A&M Corpus Christi just because you can hang out with some friends. Am I right?
Yeah, go home.
Yes, it does feel like home. I mean, for me, the beach in general, just it's awesome. But it sometimes it's good. It's got its goods and pros and cons. During what season was it? The Red Tide season just was horrible. But yeah, so going on. All right, I'm having a look at the questions. Okay, so let's get back. Let's go to, okay, as a parent, what have you really learned being a parent of, what was it like? I'm sorry. So being a parent, what have you really learned from being a parent?
Well, I have one child, so I am a parent. I learned that it was best to be honest, even if they were, when a kid asks you questions, to be as honest as you can, because even if it's uncomfortable, they'll remember your honesty. I think that was probably the most important thing. Also, giving my son ownership of his own body. So when I grew up, my parents would be, oh, hug Uncle Bill or Aunt Bonnie, or give so-and-so a kiss. And I was a big proponent of, if you don't want to hug Uncle Bill or kiss Aunt Bonnie, it's your body and your right to say no. So those were things that actually benefited me and my son in life. I'd rather not say what his name is, because I'm going to say in the Cub Scouts he was touched inappropriately.
I got you.
And he came to me right away. He stopped it. It never went to anything but over his clothes, because I told him, if you're uncomfortable, if somebody makes you uncomfortable, it's your body. You can say no and then go tell somebody. So that was a lesson that I learned, and I try to share with my friends who are young mothers, because my son's almost 30, is that you give children ownership of their bodies, to say no, because you don't want to teach them to say yes to adults just because mommy and daddy say so. But
yeah, because I mean, you don't want your kids to grow up thinking adults are always right.
Yeah, that if somebody says I can hug you or kiss you or give me a kiss, that they have to do that,
Yeah.
But that's also a teaching style, but I personally, that was one thing I think I took away from parenting, was one, to be as honest about questions that he asked me. And sometimes I'd say it was about sex or about pooping or something, and
Yeah.
do you want me to tell you, or do you want to get the information from your dad or from someone else? And there were times when he got older, he'd be like, no, I think I'll go talk to somebody else about it. So I just, yeah, be as honest as I could when he asked me questions, and to give him ownership of it.
um, when it comes to, I mean, like, what do you like looking back? What would you say would you like have like learned of like things not to do as being a parent? Like, if you like look, so I mean, I know, like I've got 6 kids. I abruptly became a parent a few years ago when I met my wife and her 4 kids, and then we have 2 of our own, and so I'm just like learning all of this, and I look back right now and like, I should have, I shouldn't have done this, I shouldn't have done that. I'm doing a lot of apologies. So like looking back as your kid's older, like what do you think that you would have done? One thing that you would have done different that like what you think you should have, or actually you should have started to do.
I maybe I can't. There's so many things that you do that are just mistakes that you make as a parent. And I have a stepson that I started raising when he was 13, and he had a lot of personality issues and issues with school and things like that. I think it's individual for each kid, and I think I made mistakes, and I don't know specifically, maybe not give them junk food or McDonald's, because I know that stuff's really bad. But that's hard too. So uh, diet, and maybe teaching him more about healthy ways of living. I smoked cigarettes and things like that. I think that those are the mistakes that I would make, that I would change. But as far as with each individual child, it's all different. So
Yeah,
you never know, something that didn't work for Skylar worked for Justice, or something that didn't work for Justice worked for Skylar. So
I got you. I got you. So, um, what's your biggest accomplishment in life? Like, what could you say? Like, you can stand and say, okay, this is what I've done, and you're so proud of. I mean, because the little time I've known you, I mean, you've done so much, and just knowing for a little bit about your history, you've done a lot. So, what would you say?
I would say my boys are my greatest accomplishment. My stepson Justice and my son. They are both wonderful young men and have made mistakes, and are both getting above that, and have been independent. They don't, you know, I don't have grown men living in my house, and they turn 18 and they wanted to be out on their own, and they handle their business. So, as far as being a parent, that's my greatest accomplishment. My personal life, finally realizing that I could do what I want to do, and not what other people prescribed for me growing up or as an adult. Uh, Following through with art school and going on to get my master's degree, and hopefully do some public artwork that is permanent and maybe makes people think, will be my accomplishment. As a person, as an individual, not as a parent, or
Yeah.
you know, hopefully I can bring forth a lot of thought, and have people look at things from different perspectives. Being an atypical learner, I do a lot of unusual perspectives in painting and video and sculpture, because I want to make people think about that, about perspective, about how it is to look at things from a different angle, something you're not used to or makes you uncomfortable.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
that's awesome. Because I mean, it's awesome that you're not. I mean, that you're tying it in with being a parent, because that's so important. A lot of people don't. When I hear about people talk about their accomplishments, it's never their parenting. You know, very seldom is it their parenting, and that I believe is the most important. You know, is the most important. You know, is parenting, because that's our future. You know, no matter what, that's our future. So with that, I mean, there's a lot of things people go right now that is very controversial is abortion. And so a lot of people are like, well, that's our future, that's our kids, and you're murdering our kids. And you got other people saying, well, it's my body, and I choose not to do that. You know, I choose not to raise these kids in a horrible world. So what's your view on abortion?
Abortion's a tough one. My view is, my personal view is, I would not have an abortion, but I had complications having children, and I know what it is to struggle, but I also believe that women have a right to make a choice, that historically putting restrictions on women's birth control or wanting to carry a child or not carry a child has been used to oppress women, if it's even. And I also know that medically there's reasons to eliminate pregnancies. Personally, I wish people wouldn't use it as a form of birth control, that if it was a medical necessity or a product of sexual assault, maybe they would use it more for that. But I also feel like it's not my personal choice to make decisions about other people's bodies. But personally, I would not, because I do believe they are a zygote. Zygote is also a living person.
Yeah.
So that's my opinion.
But probably there's probably people going to be mad because you said that. But I mean, like you said, it's your opinion.
That's my opinion, is that the moment of conception in a woman's body, not in a petri dish, is the moment of life. And that's my opinion. I also believe that I don't get to choose for another woman if she wants to have a child or not. I know that the system's overflowed with foster children and children who need adopted. So, yeah, that's
so.
No,
what led you to
that? To believe that zygote or zagot, I'm saying it wrong, I know, is a live child. It's just
I've never heard that term, so I would love to, like. You know,
I know I'm saying it wrong,
right, but I've never heard that term.
It's just the stages of the cells becoming and separating, and whatever that medical term is.
Yeah.
A lot of people believe that it's not actually a living person or a person yet at the time, but I do. That's my opinion. I believe that we have souls, and I believe that, at the moment of conception, that I'm going to cry because it's personal to me. I've lost children. And yes, I believe they were my children from the beginning before I lost them. So that's my opinion. That's the reason I think I believe that too, is because they were already my children before I lost them. So.
Well, after this, I want I'll talk to you a little bit more about that.
I didn't want to get super emotional, but yes, that's my personal belief, and that's why I believe that way.
And I'm along with you, because my wife, we had a child, and it was miscarried, and I know that emotional roller coaster. And I've been in other situations where I thought I was going to have a kid and not. And it was emotional roller coaster. So for me, it's personal also, and I'm just trying hard not to cry. But, it's really difficult. It's a really difficult, and I do get emotional about that too. But because of that issue, I've lost friends because of what's happened to me in my life. So, I mean, I'll talk to you later about it, because my wife, I'm not gonna.
Okay.
My wife, she wrote a book about that. And
yeah, I know. I
Do
I
what?
know. I do know.
Yeah,
I looked. I looked up the book. I want to. I know she did, and I have looked at it. I looked at the synopsis and
yeah,
everything, so I do know.
and she knows a lot about that subject, and it gets really emotional for her. So let's change it up a little bit.
Okay.
So it's not so personal. Let's not get everybody crying. Because I don't cry, but I will cry. So about politics. What do you see wrong with politics today?
Wow, that's a huge question, and there's a lot of answers. I think the separation in our parties and in our system right now is a terrible thing. And I saw something about like ending the Democratic Party, but really they're talking about renaming a party, and maybe we could just eliminate the parties that we have now and come up with 3 new parties and 3 new candidates. So maybe change the platforms or the separation that we're having somehow, where we can have candidates that aren't one's this side, one's that side, and
Yeah,
have like, I don't know. I think the 2-party system's kind of messed up. Maybe we should either have a 3-party system or a no-party system where we have candidates or presidential candidates who are, we have this many, and they have, I don't even know government-wise why we have to separate and lot and write bills and things under parties. So I think that the separation in politics right now is a big problem and a big issue. I want to find a way, or I would like to know a way we could bring people back together. And maybe.
I agree with you. I agree with you. I mean, I personally, I've read some stuff. I don't know how true it is because I mean, I read it on the internet because that's where we all get our information. And even with supposedly reliable sources, there's still bias in it. But I did read something that said that it was like the Republicans and Democrats have basically got with the networks and said, hey, only us with presidential, like with our presidential, what is it called? Debates.
Yeah.
The presidential debates is only set to be Republican and Democrat. There is no libertarian. There's no
independent party. Nope.
Yeah, nothing else. And that really stifles the other guys and their voice, and it silences their voices. And I think PBS will do will do their presidential debate over the other parties, but it's like, what are you scared of? What are you really scared of? Why are you trying to silence these voices? And these guys typically, I mean, if they do great, they get a double-digit percentage of votes. Most of the time, it's not even that.
A lot of the funding and stuff is also hanky and not good. Corporations paying for presidential candidates' campaigns is crazy to me. But I don't know enough about politics to know. I just know that I feel like there's this huge separation in our country right now, and it's because of these 2 very distinct bodies that I feel like are both not good.
Yeah.
And if we need to make changes to the system, we need to make changes to the whole system. And we maybe need to start with small things and work our way up to bigger things. But the 2 parties is crazy. And I think that we maybe need candidates that aren't hugely funded by corporations or other entities, that we need the everyday guy also in our elections.
Yeah, and I really believe that what it is that, I mean, if somebody came out, and it doesn't matter, I really believe that it doesn't matter if they're Democrat or Republican. If they came out as like across the board, I'm in the middle. And I may be some things, I may be for abortion, but I'm also 100% for the Second Amendment. You know, and
Right.
I'm more for freedom of speech, and I'm not for, you know, the cancel culture. You know, and I think if somebody was, it doesn't, and I really believe that it doesn't matter who it is on either side, if they were for that and more in the middle and not pandering to all the votes and all these individual groups, then I think that that candidate would probably be would win more elections.
I feel
Would
like it's
win,
also a lot of finger pointing and name calling, and maybe we should maybe focus more on what the person plans to do or the good things they, instead of all the negative and finger pointing and name calling, which causes more divide and more separation, and instead of patience and listening and figuring things out. But there's a lot wrong right now in our world, and you have one of the questions I know was, if I was president, what were
yeah,
some of the things I would do? I think I would limit single-use plastics right away. It would be aluminum or glass, because those are one of the most damaging things to our environment. And uh, I see examples in other cultures where, like, I believe it's Norway, but it could be another Scandinavian country, where you buy a water bottle and you invest in it, and then you can fill that bottle anywhere free. So it limits the single-use plastic. They have water distribution stations everywhere, and you're encouraged to hold on to that and fill it the water. It's
yeah.
filtered water. That's amazing. That's a great idea.
And as you're saying that, I'm drinking water,
Uh,
but
uh, that's one of the things I think that could globally help our whole
yeah,
planet. It seems like a simple thing to limit single-use plastic, but I have trouble doing it myself,
yeah,
because everything's in single-use plastic. I just recently started buying shampoo and conditioning bars instead of the bottles. I also have the stainless steel bottle, so I can fill my water bottle and take it with me instead of having the single-use plastic. At the same time, my husband has a construction company, and he loads his cooler full of
yeah.
single-use plastic bottles. So, it's hard, but it's something that I feel like we as a whole, in the whole world, not just the United States, need to think about and could make a big change environmentally.
I,
There's a bunch of other things I would probably implement too. Right now, the world is, we're really about defund police or backing the police. I feel like there's got to be a compromise there somewhere, where we take some of the funds and we put it towards drug rehabilitation and help the mentally handicapped or mentally unstable people with those funds, instead of arresting them and locking them in jail. And maybe if we had social programs that could help, instead of punishment for people with mental illness and serious drug issues. uh
and I agree with you. And I was talking to a friend of mine at work just this week about it, and we were talking, and it was like, man, I believe that, I mean, to get rid of the system and then creating a new system and going with that when it comes to police and everything would be horrible, because there would be so many bugs you would have to work out where it would just be detrimental for people. And as you're working this out, it's doing more harm than good. So keeping the system we have, I believe keeping the system we have and then trying to work it, just really fine tuning it. Because a lot of these problems that we're having are recent, they're new problems. Because in the 50s and the 60s, they weren't a problem because, well, you had a lot of racists, and you also had a lot of people who were like, it was more just shut up and just do what you're told. And now we are evolving into a into a group of people who are like, hey, let's be more inclusive and really understand other people, and other people have the same rights.
I believe some people need policed. I truly believe that some people are criminal and
Yeah.
they are murderers or rapists or criminal, that they're going to harm other people, their property, their things. But I do not necessarily believe that drug users and people with mental handicaps who are also, or mental disabilities, who are also homeless, should be arrested and policed. I think that we should maybe find other ways to support these, and we would save money. We would save money by not arresting and policing these communities, and maybe help them if it's adding some kind of viable living places with a nurse and doctors or psychiatrists to help them and do therapy. But then there are the other people who need to be policed and imprisoned and jailed. But we have this system that at one time we did have mental health hospitals and facilities, but they were abused by the system, doctors, nurses, lobotomies, things like that.
Yeah.
In the 60s. And so we eliminated that system altogether. Pretty much. Now we just have state-funded mental places in regular hospitals. But now we know those mistakes, and we can do things that I think that would involve policing people who are mentally ill or drug addicts, who are non-violent offenders, who are not out there, stealing, raping, murdering.
Yeah.
And treat them like human beings, and maybe with some respect and dignity, and they'll become productive members of society. Let's try it, please.
Yeah, I know. I mean, it's a crazy thought, but let's just do something different.
And I believe that we do need police. Unfortunately, I wish I could be like, oh, defund police, and then what? Then the rapists, everybody, those people are free to do whatever they want.
Yeah.
But I think that we maybe need to put funds in more civic minded things. And I would also, so that's 3 things, right? I got one more. You said, did you have 5 or how many things?
We'll do 5.
Okay, the final thing I think I would do if I was president would be to federally make marijuana legal, and also allow any people who are spending time in prison for marijuana, nonviolent, and let them out.
So you still want to smoke weed legal, right?
I would. I'm in Washington. I'm a disabled veteran. I have a neurological condition. I do use medical marijuana. But I feel like also spending money to imprison mostly young men, mostly young black men, for non-violent marijuana charges is ridiculous. It's
and I think a lot of that has it's like, well, they had marijuana, but I think a lot of it has to do with that. It's like, well, they had weed or they had drugs, even though they legitimately had it. But
the main problem with that was the 3 strike law. So people were spending life in prison on 3 charges of marijuana and nothing else. I think that it's been changed so that they're not spending life in prison. Marijuana charges, but there are still people who are spending a long time in prison for nonviolent marijuana charges.
And I'm seeing a lot of stuff of where you've got people who have been busted for drugs or marijuana, and they were smoking weed, and then all of a sudden they get these horrible charges. They get busted with several pounds of weed, and they've got like 40 years, but then you've got in the same county with the same judge someone with like pedophilia or with rape, and
Right.
they get like
Years.
like very small time, and it's like, man, you're touching a little kid, or you get caught with kid porn, child pornography. You've mass producing these kids, in carpool situations, and you're getting off with a slap of the wrist, and this dude who,
It's
yes,
joy.
yeah, and he's got 40 years, and so I mean,
Or young men have been charged for making baked goods, and since they charge by the weight of whatever the item is, they spend a lot of time, because a pan of brownie weighs, almost a pound. So
yeah,
then considered to have a pound of marijuana or a pound of edibles or whatever.
because it's got THC in it.
Right. So that's something I think is just ridiculous. I say nonviolent. I mean, that means you didn't get high and then get into a car and run somebody over, or get in an accident, or, drive a vehicle while intoxicated. Those things are totally different than, you have a bag of pot and it happens to be over an ounce. So now
Yeah,
you're being charged as a felon. So I would definitely want to repeal all of the federal marijuana laws. So that's just my opinion. That's what
when you were talking about mental health, I've been locked up in state jail. In Texas, in state jail, it's some places it would be considered prison or whatever. I mean, I was with people who were going like spending years and years in prison, and in that I saw a lot of people who had mental health problems, like serious mental health problems. Like, well, a lot of people, and when it comes to the prison system, where what I've seen is that they're not easy on giving you any kind of narcotics, any kind of like serious stuff, because, well, it can be abused. But there was a lot of people going to take these serious drugs and having serious mental health issues. I didn't actually see it in person. I saw the after effects of a guy getting his throat slit in state jail. In state jail, you're spending 2 years max, and you're getting out. No matter what you do, your sentence is not going to be extended.
right.
But this guy cut this guy's throat because he said that he was, and I'm talking like serious, like the guy, like people saw it and so they saw the inside of his, anatomy. And they were like, I mean, just because this guy said that he was an FBI agent, spying on him. And it was like, whoa, dude, you're in prison. You're in jail. The FBI does not have to spy on you.
Right.
Whatever you did was not that serious. But, I mean, and I saw a lot of people with serious issues that really had problems that society doesn't deal with. And they just throw them in jail.
It takes a lot of money to put them in jail too. So
yeah,
I really.
And I guess it's easier to put them in jail to try to help, build them up to have them to where they're not. I mean, to rehabilitate them, to give them some help. And I see that problem too. Is there's not much rehabilitation.
I was going to say
institutionalization.
Right. So also another thing that some of the more democratically socialist countries do, the prisons in Norway are set up with where they have jobs, and the guards sit on the couches and have coffee with the prisoners, and they're treated a certain way, and they are allowed all these tools, but they're also still in prison. I mean, they can't leave. 40% of them are from other countries, but it's still prison, but they're treated a certain way, and they're given certain tools to be an electrician. One guy was studying to be an electrician and auto mechanic, and they have full auto mechanic shops and things like that where they're actually encouraged to leave and go to these classes and go do these things, and they have a full kitchen where they can make their own meals and a store where they can buy things. And so either they can sit in their cell or they can go work, learn a trade, and earn money and be able to buy their things in a regular store. So
Yeah.
treating people with normalcy and like they're human beings and like they have thoughts and feelings would probably be a better way to treat people in the prison system.
I know in the state of Texas they have like they help people and they give them certain there's programs where they can learn to be an electrician or a plumber or HVAC or a truck driver. You know, I mean, and other areas where it give people the opportunities. But you know, that's not very, and that's still not giving people the opportunity when they get out. Are they
Right.
able to, do that? So we could talk a lot about this because it's a very, deep subject. But let's go to a different deep subject because, as they say at the bars, you don't talk about two subjects: politics or religion. So
Right.
let's talk about religion. um, do you practice the spiritual discipleship?
That's a huge question. My mother is a Baptist. My husband is apostolic. So he attends church. I attend his church. Uh, am I practicing? Not necessarily. I'm not a proponent of organized religion. I do believe in a higher power. I believe Jesus was a real person. I don't necessarily believe all the teachings in a Christian church, Catholic church, or most of the organized religions. I have reasons for that, and if
Yeah.
you ask me, I will go into those reasons.
Yeah. So
But
what are those reasons? Because I mean, I'm really, that's the whole point about this podcast is understand why people, believe. I mean, what are the answers to these questions? But not so much of what their answers for, but why are they? Why is it that they answer this way?
I grew up in church because my mom is very, very. I mean, she does Bible study 3 days a week and goes to church every Sunday and she goes and does retreats and things. My stepdad was an alcoholic and he reeked of alcohol. We would go to church and people would feel sorry for us and pity us, and I didn't like that. I didn't like that. I felt like I was being judged in church. Also, my son is gay, so I hear a lot of negativity about homosexuality in church.
Yeah.
Uh, I believe that in my heart, I have a relationship with God, and that love is the ultimate lesson and the thing that we all need to know. So I don't see how any form of love could be a bad thing or against God. So I think that some of the teachings don't ring true to me and my relationship with God. So I think that goodness and love and understanding are the principles of why we are on earth and why we have these lives, and I really feel like organized religion doesn't give me that feeling. I don't have that comfortability, but I do have it with other people who are Christians. I mean, my husband, he has his faith and he is very strong and devout, and I respect that. My mother, it brings her peace, it brings her comfort, and she really, someone's faith is not something I want to question. Um,
Yeah.
my own personal belief is yes, Jesus was real. Yes, there is a God, and we do go on. We're not just dead and gone. But I don't know about any man, telling me what's right and wrong, if it's
Yeah.
the Catholic Church, if it's the preacher, or I think that I have an experience in a relationship of my own.
Hey,
So,
that's awesome. That's awesome. Um, So with that, again, changing it up, how do you see America? Do you see America as racist? Because with the death of Mr. Floyd, well, not so much the death, but the murder. I mean, because what happened? I mean, but it's also, I mean, after the whole video came out, it's a lot of people questioning it and saying that it wasn't really racially motivated, and there's a lot of controversy with that. But this not even just with that. There's a lot of stuff leading up to it that was, that this wasn't just like, oh, all of a sudden. I mean, this is more of a tipping point, and then the pandemic and everything. So, do you see it as racist? America is racist.
So I feel like America was founded in colonization and white supremacy. Do I feel like as a country we are racist? No. I feel like the institutions and a lot of things in our country were established and made for white men by white men, and that's most colleges, most production companies, most publishing companies are the head, not the writers, not the people that are writing, because you can name directors who are black and writers who are black, or writers who are Hispanic, but most of our institutions were founded and were established for and by white men, because we are a colonized country where European come over to establish our own country, and majority white settlers. And we did use racism. It was a part of our founding country. It's something we built our country on in the beginning. I don't feel like we are like that. I don't think we're a racist country now. I think that we've grown. I think that there's a lot of systems in play that are old systems and need changed, and things that have to happen steps at a time, small steps. If it means giving more home loans to families who are black in better neighborhoods, if they can, if they can qualify for a home loan, let's put them up in a neighborhood that's not predominantly black or considered a bad area. Let's, systematically we can do small things and make bigger changes. Currently, I don't feel like America's a racist country. I feel like we have racial tension. I feel like since it was a colonized country, I don't know any countries right now that aren't colonized by Spain, England, or other, other West civilization. Right. Well, except for maybe some of the Eastern countries that are thousands of years old, and, Japan, but they're still, as Americans, have occupation in Japan where they're only military. So, colonization is a big thing, and it grew out of racism, and saying that the white idea was better and more civilized and more, however they set it up. I feel like we're all hopefully growing and coming out of that, but there's changes have to be made, and they have to start small, because we can't make giant big changes in something that's been going on for hundreds, thousands of years. Not even just, I mean, at one point Scottish people and Irish people were slaves, and it's a oppression, and pointing out races, religions is something that's been going on for all of humanity. So how do we need to figure out ways to stop it? But I don't feel like we, as the United States, are a racist country.
So going with that, because you were mentioning immigration and stuff, and people coming into America. So how do you see immigration today? And what do you think we need to do to because I mean there is a problem with immigration, and we have no matter what side you're on, no matter how you look at it, there's a problem. So what do you say with that? Like, what do you say we need to do to help with to help reform. That's the word I'm looking for. Help reform immigration.
So I think we have to start small again. So we'll have to start with the dreamers, because I feel like they're the most important immigrants right now, because they are the definition of a dreamer is a minor child brought over, educated in the United States, but still not a legal immigrant. They were brought by an adult, a parent,
Yeah.
and have been educated. And I have people I know who are dreamers, who are becoming legal immigrants, but have been in trouble because they weren't considered legal immigrants. I feel like that's where we should start. We should start a program letting in the people who were minor children who did not make a conscious decision as an adult, to break the law and come into our country. I feel like they should be allowed to become citizens and work and pay taxes, and we'll start there with these young people who are in our country, who are already participating in our system.
Yeah.
There definitely has to be regulations. We can't just let everybody over. We can't just let everybody into our country. I wish I knew more about immigration and how to reform it. Locking up people in cages is a bad way to do it. I don't know what else we can do if we just release them that day and take them back and release them instead of holding them. I don't know. I really wish I knew more.
Yeah, along with a lot of the other questions and problems that America has, it's never an easy fix. It's not. You can't just say, "Oh well, we just do X, Y, Z, and everything will be okay." Because it's not. Because no matter what problems we do, no matter what kind of solutions we think are the best, there's always going to be something to where it's like, So with that, I think, and under something that not many people talk about, but it is, I believe, one of the most important problems in America, and more of a root problem in America, and I think it's the reason why nobody talks about it, is education, and because I believe that's a hard problem, and it's something where it points the finger at everybody.
Well, that goes to systematic racism too. I mean, because the funds go to schools based on income, based on and the scores of the children and things like that. So, the minority neighborhoods that aren't getting the funding to pay the good teachers, to get the good supplies, to have so a lot of that is part of it. So, I mean, wow, we have so many things we could fix, but I think starting with kids is always a good place to start. So even with dreamers, and so I'm going back to the
and it all kind of encompassed, because it's like, okay, and I view that, I mean, we shouldn't, I mean, and that's a touchy subject, because I mean, like, what are you going to do? Kick these kids out because their parents made a bad decision? And but also, I mean, with these kids who parents, I mean, I believe that we should that people stay poor consistently because they make bad financial decisions, to an extent. And I'm not saying across the board, but I mean, I've seen myself. I've been homeless many times, and I've gotten where I'm at today by the grace of God. But it's also because I didn't buy stuff that I didn't need, And so there's little things that we could do. I mean, Dave Ramsey says that a lot, and he says a lot of stuff where it's like, man, you gotta pick what you need to spend on. And I know there's sometimes where you're either pay the bills or eat, that's there too. So, I mean, that's also a tricky subject, but it's like with education, we've got to focus on? Oh, she wants some attention, huh?
Well, she's chewing on one of my sculptures. I'm
Oh
like,
yeah.
little stinker. Sorry about that.
No, that's fine. But yeah, I mean, I wrote back to what I was talking about with Rand Paul. I heard him when it comes to education. He made a really good, like he's put it in a bill, trying to make it a law, where like the kids individually get, because like the federal government gives the schools funding, and he was like, what we need to do is give the individual kids this funding and then have them choose where they go to school. To where if you live in an area that the school district is not as good, but then you can go with that funding, with that money that the federal government gave you, you can give it to a private school to where you're able to go to a private school, or
Right.
to have the money go to a better school district and do that. I think that's a good idea. What do you think?
I think funding schools more would probably be the better. I mean, if we gave more funding to all the schools and it was some kind of way to equalize the funding, and we weren't maybe just testing all the kids because some kids have better educations than others,
Yeah.
that there's got to be some kind of way to equalize everything. How we do that, I don't know. I do know that when I was in the 6th grade, I was determined to have a learning disability, and I was separated from the other kids, put in a class where I was made to feel ashamed, and for a long time I didn't tell people I have dysgraphia. I have a hard time spelling, and it's very embarrassing when you're handwriting things. But I was made to feel like I was less than. And I hate the idea of any kids in any community, because of funding, not being able to be taught in their learning style. One, because not every child learns the same way, and the quality of their materials, if it's computers, textbooks, things like that. So, I think that's the only way we can fix the system, is to make sure that every kid, no child left behind. But
Yeah.
it's not happening. It's not a real thing. It's not happening. Not all schools are being funded evenly. Not all schools are given computers or have the technology to teach the kids. So yeah, it sucks. I don't know how to fix it.
Yeah, there's a very, I mean, but that's why I'm doing this, is so I can get a better understanding and listen to a lot of different people and just kind of put it out there to where more people, I mean, to start the discussion. That's where we need to start, is the discussion over, focusing on kids. I think a lot of the problems with America have to do with the people are undereducated, and so we need to focus on, how to educate to better our children. So let's go back to you. For my last and final question, what are the 3 people that have influenced you in your life? And if you were to die today and those 3 people were going to speak at your funeral, what would they say?
Aha. So my grandmother, she was the first one who told me I was an artist when I was probably like 7 years old. And she was a lesbian, had a wife for many years, loved everybody, cared for everybody. She could be tough sometimes, but only because she loved us, that kind of thing. So I'd say my grandmother Gladys Walters is my number 1 top person. The second person I would say is Thomas Moran, and you may not know who Thomas Moran is, but I'll give you a little quick synopsis. He is a painter. He's an American painter from the I think the late 1800s. He was part of the westward expansion. He spent time in Yellowstone painting and the Grand Canyon and numerous parks exploring the West with the famous photographer. I can't think of his name. They went together, Ansel Adams. And Ansel Adams would take black and white photos of these places, and Thomas Moran would paint them. And they're beautiful. They're landscape
So
paintings.
he'd paint them in color?
Yes. And
Oh,
so
wow.
together, they were able to get like Yellowstone and the Grand Canyon and other parks made into national parks with Roosevelt, with President Roosevelt. They worked alongside with President Roosevelt. He is and plus, with a beard, my husband looks like him. He's like he's my favorite artist ever of all time. We don't have similar painting styles, but I think we have similar ideas. As I like to travel, I've lived a lot of different places in the United States, just moving around, and there's not very many places to explore that have never been seen before. But you know, I like the idea of building art in other countries. While I'm getting my master's degree, I plan on applying for a couple things in Norway. I keep talking about Norway because I have interest in building public art there, because they have large funds and a lot of government funds for artists to come over and build public art for them. I applied for one in Seattle. I did not get it. I'm sad I didn't get it. I just got notified yesterday. But I have shown in Columbia Tower in Seattle and other things like that. But Thomas Moran is prolific. His work is huge. It's in DC. It's all over. He really made some change with his work by helping preserve these places for us. And third, who? Oh, I don't know. Trying to think if I have a third. Well, I have my professor.
Well, if you don't, that's fine. I mean,
okay, I do. I'll say my professor Cornish, Gable Griffin. He taught me how to paint. So everything I learned about painting, I learned from him. If mixing color and painting and abstract expressionism. So you know, Ellen de Kooning I learned about her. She's my favorite female painter. So Cable taught me everything I know about painting. So I'll say he's my third.
And so what would you think they would say at your funeral?
Probably that I was a little bit crazy and impulsive, that I care about people. My mother likes to say, so my grandmother also would say, that I feel too much sometimes. Even when I was little, if I heard of like what happened in Beirut recently with the building blowing up, I would
that was horrible.
I would cry. It would physically affect me, and even now things physically affect me emotionally that are happening worldwide. So probably that I felt too much. And that sometimes I could be a bit of an asshole. So I think that would sum it up. Because I can be stubborn too. So.
And I think that's a quality a lot of us have, of being an asshole. I mean, it's hard sometimes with some people. It's yeah. Well, that's great. It's kind of running a little over time, so trying to do this within an hour. So that's awesome. Thank you so much for your time on my first episode, on my first podcast, my only podcast right now. You've been awesome. You've been great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I want to end the recording, but please still hold on just for a little bit longer.
Are we going to dance?
Yes, I forgot. Yes. So, can you dance?
I can kind of dance. Let's see. Oh, no. I'll chair dance.
Oh. There we go. So let's end it off there. You're dancing. That's great. Hey, Charly O, check out our paintings. Check out our website. High five. So what's your website?
I don't have the website yet. Instagram, Charly O _artist.
All right. And Facebook?
Facebook, just Charlie, or it's actually my legal name, Charlene.
Okay.
Yeah, but I don't have an art page. I just have Instagram. Also, Cornish has work up for the BFA last year. So Cornish's website also.
All right, awesome. So that's why they can get a hold of you, buy some of your awesome painting. Thank you so much, and you have a good one.